views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
And hello, everyone, and welcome to Open, the one and only show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world right to you. I'm your host, Daren Jaime. Today, we're going to update you on what's happening in and around our borough and, of course, all around New York City. Well, coming up on today's show, we will talk front and center with career strategist and TV contributor Elizabeth Carratza on some tips and strategies helping to make the transition back to the office a smooth one. And then we're going to learn what assistance WHEDco is providing to neighborhoods as well as small businesses who've been hit hard by COVID-19. And then a little bit later on in the show, we're going to take you to an exhibition presenting everyday life through this pandemic through the eyes of a senior citizen. And then a little bit later on in the show, we're going to talk about a woman who's an author and a very special book that she has, Empowering Single Mothers. We'll give you more details a little bit later on. And then finally, with all the challenges faced in COVID-19, we'll discuss how a not-for-profit organization is providing volunteer services online. So stay tuned. We got a very special show, some exciting guests, and Open starts right now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Open, and I am Daren Jaime. Today is Wednesday, July the 8th, and yes, you're watching Open, a show that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to your TV sets. We also want to welcome our viewers on Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcast live simultaneously on MNN's channel. We encourage you also to stay connected to us on all of our social media platforms. How do you do that? Well, all you got to do is stay connected at BronxNet TV. Well, a lot has certainly been going on through the past week. We're going to take you through a few things with our Bronx Updates. New Yorkers patiently waiting a return to indoor dining may have to wait just a little bit longer as a national coronavirus resurgence is happening. Indoor dining was poised to return as part of New York City's anticipated move in phase 3 of reopening. Mayor Bill de Blasio stated the spikes in Texas and Florida reveal, quote, a troubling nexus between indoor dining and the spread of COVID-19. A restaurant in East Lansing, Michigan had 85 patrons test positive for COVID-19, despite following social distancing guidelines. Mayor Bill de Blasio said that city officials will work with their state counterparts, trying to ensure a better and a safer phase 3, or the city will double down on outdoor dining with more than 6,000 restaurants applying to operate in outdoor dining spaces. Well, in other news, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is also talking about the city council's bill. The City Council passed a bill seeking to provide the public with a way to keep track of COVID-19 funds that are actually coming into our community. Our BronxNet reporter Arlene Makoko brings us the story right now.
The New York City Council passed a bill that seeks to provide the public a way to keep track of COVID-19 spending coming into communities that include those impacted the most.
I introduced, along with Councilmember Mark Traeger, in 1952, which is a COVID-19 spending tracking bill that's going to mandate that the city provide a database on the city's website that will monitor and look at all of the agency spending as it relates to COVID-19.
The reasons for her are clear, as Bronx communities already hindered by pre-existing health conditions suffered the most during the height of the coronavirus pandemic.
As we spend dollars, we want to reinvest in those same communities that were the hardest hit. by providing health care and mental health and therapeutic services, and access to food and stable housing is very important for us.
Data from the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene shows that the second highest number of infections citywide for COVID-19 is in the zip code 10467 at 3,503, next to Corona, Queens at 4,757 positive cases. 10469, also in the Bronx, is in fifth place with 3,087 cases, and 10468 with 2,845 testing positive. In Claremont Village and Morrisania, that number is 2,591, followed by Highbridge at 2,495. The bill is now before the mayor, who would have to approve the measure. For BronxNet, this is Arlene Makoko.
And thank you, Arlene. And of course, we'll continue to follow this story and more related to COVID-19 right here on BronxNet TV, and particularly right here on Open. Taking a quick break, and Open will return right after this.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from BronxNet,
and thank you for staying with us. As many of New Yorkers are really transitioning in this COVID reopening phase, a lot of people are making the transition from home back to the office, from re-entering the workplace, and it can seem somewhat overwhelming to people sometimes. And you know, you're working from home for the last several months, and especially things are now going good. All of a sudden, you got to trample back into the office. And so what are some of the strategies, some of the tips that the person might need in order to make that a healthy and a safe transition? Joining us now is none other than career strategist and TV contributor Elizabeth Carratza, who joins us now. And Elizabeth, good to have you back.
Thank you. I love talking to you and all your viewers in New York.
Yeah, it's good to have you sharing with us again. And really an important time. I mean, you know, you're West Coast, but you're also East Coast too. Talk to us a little bit about this. We're starting the reopening phase, of course, and it's a hard transition to get people to really move from home, like I said, back to the office. And for a lot of people, it's going to be monumental.
Well, you know, you really hit the nail on the head, Daren. It's transition and it's monumental. And there's a lot of stresses kind of that's whirling around in our lives right now, because some of us have enjoyed working from home. And then all of a sudden you've got that commute again, and you've got some extra expenses with that commute, and maybe buying your lunch and all of that. So what I would say is remind yourself that this is a transition, okay? And transition is not always easy peasy. So some ways to make this transition easier is, number one, remind yourself everybody is going through this. I'm not the only one. Mm-hmm. You know, talk to colleagues and mentors or people that really support you and that you trust for advice, and maybe kind of share experiences. And if you're feeling uneasy about entering and re-entering the workplace, talk to your manager, talk to your supervisor, ask those questions that haven't been answered, because that is going to take some of that worry off you, off your plate. It's just, you're going to feel a little bit lighter and you're not going to be so worried about it.
Yeah. But give me this, because a lot of people are dealing with this. We know that 22 million Americans had filed for unemployment, and many for the very first time going through this challenge. So the job market is definitely changing. So for some people who aren't going back to work, they're trying to find work. What advice do you have for somebody who's actually trying to find work now?
Well, first and foremost, I know what it feels like to be let go because I've been in that experience. And it's like, if you're not expecting it, it's like a punch to the gut. You're just winded. You can't believe it. So, okay, it's happened. Now we're moving forward. Sometimes what happens is like we'll replay the scenario and we might be angry or upset, and all those feelings are normal and natural. But what I like to tell people is, only look back in your rearview mirror to learn from it, not to dwell on it, because that's going to keep you down and you don't want to be kept down right now. Number 2, you're not alone. Like you said, millions of Americans are going through this right now. Okay. Number 3, you want to ask for help. Yes, there's many different things that you can do, which I'm excited to go through today in our conversation. But you really, first and foremost, where and who can help you? Who have you helped in the past? Because most likely, the place you're going to get a job is through a recommendation or a referral or through a friend, old colleague, boss, or mentor. So ask for help.
Yeah. A lot of people, though, will do some combing through the computers. So people will be looking through, newspapers and of that nature. Talk to us about that changing dynamic of, looking behind a computer, hoping that you'll be able to find some employment, as well as, looking through the periodicals that we normally have been accustomed to finding it. That kind of sort of has shifted.
Yes, and I think it's important to remember to be patient. And I know that's hard to hear right now because you want to get back in there. A lot of what we do, our occupation, the money we make is tied up in our identity. It makes us feel good when we're making money. It makes us feel good when we're contributing, and it can make us feel badly when we're not. But what I would say is everybody goes through this at some point in your life. Okay. So again, we've all been through it. And number 2, yes, if you have access to a computer and you've got the internet, or you're more into the paper, whatever it might be, you want to start looking. And what I do like about these job postings is that now that you've been let go or you're out of a job right now, you have the opportunity to figure out, is this still what I want to be doing? Do I want to recreate my career? What does my vision look like for my life and for my career? So instead of just jumping right into it and looking for a job, the exact same job you were doing, you've got the perfect opportunity to really think about, strategize, and plan. Is this what I want to be doing?
Yeah. And is it what you want to be doing? Talk about dreams. Everybody has their dream job. And some people land it, some people don't. But you could actually turn your career into that dream job. And I know for you, you've had the opportunity to do that. So share a little bit about that.
Yes. Okay. So I want to ask everybody at home or whoever's in this position to really think about, if there were no obstacles, what would I be doing? What do I daydream about doing? What do I say? Oh, Mary's got that job or that business. I wish I could be doing what she's doing. You really want to think about, what are the things that excite you, fulfill you? And yes, you want to think about it, but if we don't write it down, it's all going to be swirling around in our mind, which is what I call tornado brain. And that's the last thing you want. So you want to write it down. What do I like about my job now? What do I hate about my job now? And I know hate's a strong word, but in reality, sometimes we really do feel that way. I've been there, and then what are the things that I love to do? Even if it is the exact opposite to what I'm doing right now or what I'm trying to do right now. Make that list of, what do I love? What fulfills me? What do I wish I was doing? And then when you pinpoint a couple, some that really feel the most exciting to you, talk to other people that are doing that. So you can get their perspective, their advice, and they might even be able to start connecting you to people who can help you and really make this happen.
What are some of the common mistakes that people are making during a time like this? Because, there's an opportunity for some to really make advancement. And for some, as you're trying to sell yourself, you also might shoot yourself in the foot by some of these common mistakes.
Exactly. And you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. So again, when you're explaining to someone how you're looking for a job. Be clear on what it is you want. Make it easy for the person you're talking to say yes to you. So get clear. You do not have to replay the whole layoff scenario. First of all, it drudges up a lot of, for some of us, painful feelings, and we don't necessarily need to go back there. And number two, they don't need to hear about how, supervisor said this and they should have done this and I could have done this and then my other colleague did this. No. Make it clear. You don't want to come off like you're sour grapes. You just want to let them know if someone says what happens. Well, my whole team was laid off, or myself in this group, or this person was laid off, but now I'm ready. I'm excited. This is what I have to offer. You want to think about when you're talking to somebody who could help you. What sets me apart from other people? Make a list for yourself. Why am I better than the next guy or the next girl? Why am I better than them? Why should this person hire me? You want to look back on your skills and your experiences.
Well, Elizabeth, we're going to leave it there, but tell people how they can get connected to you, find out more if they need some more assistance.
Yes, you can follow me on all platforms at Elizabeth, Elizabeth, and my last name is Koraca, or my website at Elizabeth, Koraca.com.
All righty, Elizabeth. As always, love having you. Love the information, and it's certainly informative and a difference maker. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure speaking with you, Daren.
All righty. Elizabeth Carratza, our guest here. And listen, we want you to stay with us. We still have more open coming up right after this.
When taking public transportation, don't touch your phone. Carry hand sanitizer and use it immediately upon leaving the bus or train. Avoid touching your face. If someone is coughing or sneezing, move away. Wash your hands with soap and water as soon as possible. Limit contact with poles. If possible, avoid rush hour. Don't eat or drink on public transportation. Keep your bag off the floor or other surfaces. Avoid directly touching turnstiles. Stay up to date with the latest from your local health department and CDC.
And welcome back. Weco is a not-for-profit that is serving the South Bronx communities with education, housing, family support, economic development, as well as the arts. And during the time of COVID-19, businesses and closures and layoffs, hard hit in that area. And the question is, what support is Weco providing during a time like this when things are very challenging? We're pleased to be joined by the Senior Program Manager of Weco, Yesmín Vega, and thank you so much, Yesmín, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Daren. Thank you so much for having me again on Open. I've been here a few times, and I'm really sad that I can't actually be here. I love the studios.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we do too. And I mean, I love being in the studio and having people right next to me. And unfortunately, you're not, but you're virtual. And glad that we could have this conversation and talk a little bit about this. But give us a little bit about, everybody's navigating through COVID-19. We're at the place of reopening, but talk to us about what WHEDco is experiencing right there in the South Bronx community.
So WHEDco, as you mentioned, is a nonprofit that works in 3 different communities here in the South Bronx, Highbridge Concourse, Crotona Park East, and Melrose Morrisania. And listen, we've all been really hard hit, and like us as people and communities as well, business owners. And WHEDco, its mission is to support the holistic person and provide support both in housing and entrepreneurship and also counseling and, that holistic support. So we've been able to shift to remote work to continue to be able to provide these services as best as we can. So we continue remotely as much as we can, connecting with our community members with healthcare benefits and unemployment benefits, as well as, the small businesses. I want to really get into the small businesses because that's who I work a lot with specifically. And, sometimes it's like really hard to imagine. And people are realizing it now that small businesses and these merchants are really the backbone of our neighborhoods and our communities.
The backbone of America. I mean, let's be honest.
The backbone of America. That's so true. And there's something so special, especially here in the neighborhood. These businesses have been here forever. You know the merchant, you wave as you go by. They know your name, or they know exactly your order every single time, or they spot you a few dollars. And now these businesses are closed and our neighborhoods are really hurting, just like, just as a sense of community has kind of vanished as it has in many communities in different places. So we've been trying to recreate as best as we can this sense of community online and connecting with the individuals online and the small business owners who have been hit twice. They're hit as individuals, as people with rent and homes and families, but then also as business owners with rent and expenses and employees and all of that.
So let me jump in here and ask the question, because we talk about small businesses, right? I know one of the concerns is the moratorium, right? There's a moratorium that's been placed on rent, mortgages, things of that nature. But talk to us about how businesses are actually coping with that. I had a conversation with a business owner not too long ago, and they said, now I've got to up my prices because I now have to have PPE in my business, and so it's going to affect customers. Have you heard the same thing?
Right now, I haven't heard the thing about the price increases right now, but I think it's because a lot of the businesses in the neighborhood around Crotona Park East and the Southern Boulevard area, a lot of them are beauty and personal care businesses. So I think they're just reopening and they're still trying to figure out the pricing, and they can't have as many customers in at the same time. You can't have the salon or the barbershop packed as you used to. So I think it's going to take a lot of adjusting. And right now, where the business mind has been rent. Businesses just have not been able to pay their rent. And it's just been on good faith negotiating with their landlord. And now that they're reopening, starting to make rent payments, but they're 3-4 months behind in payments. And right now with the eviction moratorium coming to an end in August, I think, we're going to be seeing a lot of businesses that are reopening now, but now come August, I feel like we're going to be seeing a lot of businesses struggling with now eviction on top of them. So that's one of the resources that we connect our small businesses with, is free legal assistance through Volunteer for Legal Services, helping them in reviewing their contract or seeing if they have clauses in there about rent payments or eviction or any rent relief. And a lot of these businesses, I've been talking with them, a lot of them are like, you know what? I can't reopen. They're allowed to reopen now, but just the hurdle for them is insurmountable. They're so behind in rent, they're so behind in utilities that they haven't been able to access these PPP loans. They either don't qualify. I know a merchant that didn't qualify because they said she didn't have enough credit, or just they're looking for different ways, like grants. It would be a great opportunity for the small business as well. If they're small grants, they just need a little bit of working capital and just the documentation, everything they need to apply. Not to mention undocumented business owners aren't eligible to apply to those federal programs as well. So you know what? I think we're not even beginning to see how this thing is going to shake out for the businesses.
Right.
It's they're starting to open their doors, or starting to get some customers in, but the moratorium eviction is still on. So we haven't been able to see that big effect. And I understand that landlords are people too, and a lot of them are small landlords, and they're living from rent collections. But there has to be, and this is me just saying, to anyone out there with the higher powers, just needs to be a higher moratorium and relief. But I think we're not even starting to see the beginning of it. I think right now the businesses are just okay, we can open. Let's try to get people in the door. Let me try to generate some income to see if I can start paying all those 3-4 months of rent and utilities that I have to do.
Well, I also know, let me ask the question about e-commerce, because a lot of businesses had not made the adaptation to go to e-commerce. Some people just didn't have it within them. Some people strayed away from it, didn't know what, didn't have it. Are we finding more of your businesses are now adapting to e-commerce? Because as we're in this pandemic, it's going to be the way of the future.
Absolutely. And actually, we had done a business survey back in December. We finished it up, and a lot of the businesses still back in December, they told us they want to move to e-commerce. They want to have a greater online presence for their business. So we were already helping them create this online presence and social media and Facebook and selling online. And then this happened. So what we did as part of the services that we kind of had to regroup and provide is that we provided some free webinars around, best practices to starting your business online or moving your business online, how to create the free website, how to take good pictures to make sure that you can connect with your customers and sell your goods. And this is something that we're definitely going to keep at. Businesses are very interested in growing their online presence and selling online, even if it's just posting the pictures and then you Venmo them, so just easier ways to sell online. And there is definitely a huge want from the business owners to do this. And unfortunately, also a lot of these business owners, they've been in business forever and they never really had to rely on e-commerce. They maybe don't even have email addresses that they use. So, it's a step-by-step process, but that's definitely going to be how we keep pushing our resources and really concentrating on that and providing one-on-one technical assistance.
Yeah, well, Yesmín, we're going to leave it there, but thank you so much for the great work that you guys are doing in terms of helping businesses. And I know that as we start to reopen these businesses and we start to reopen as a city, a lot of places, particularly right here in our borough, are going to be adversely affected. But we're going to be coming back to you so that you can give us an update and let us know how businesses are making out, particularly in the South Bronx.
Thank you so much, Daren. I will definitely love to be back, and I hope I'm back with really great news and that we're thriving. And please, just if I can leave one last message is, please support your local merchant. Please go to your small businesses. So many of them are immigrant-owned, Black-owned, brown-owned. Please go out there and support your local merchant.
Yeah, we need our businesses to survive. As we said, small business is the lifeblood, not just of our borough, but of America. Yesmín Vega, Senior Program Manager over at WHEDco. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, listen now, if you do want more information on WHEDco, we encourage you, please visit their website. Their website is over at WHEDco.org. Also, if you want to find out more about them on Twitter and Instagram, all you've got to do is go to @WHEDcoSpeaks. So once again, WHEDco.org, the website, and WHEDco Speaks on Twitter and Instagram. Stay with us. Guess what? We have got more open coming up. We're just going to take a short break. We'll be right back right after this.
With coronavirus spreading, people at higher risk must take extra precautions. You're at higher risk if you're over 65 or if you have an underlying medical condition. Please visit coronavirus.gov for more information.
When it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, older adults in New York City suffer the highest rates of the virus. And while the South Bronx, which is the poorest urban congressional district in the United States, has the highest rate of corona infections in the country. In older adults, the pandemic has also presented some unique challenges and obstacles, but the Bronx Senior Photo League is doing a great job in providing some much needed resources to them. And joining us now to share a little bit more about that is the Bronx Senior Photo League Program Director, and we're pleased to have Rhynna M. Santos joining with us. And Rhynna, good to have you.
Good morning, Daren. It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. And so obviously for seniors in a time like this, a very critical time, and yet and still, the work that you guys are doing is tremendous because it's actually leaning into their lives and providing them some assistance as well as some support.
No, absolutely. I mean, the class is called Photographing My Life. And so basically, we're teaching older adults how to document their everyday life. But of course, as we had no idea, no one had an idea that COVID-19 was coming. So besides them doing personal projects during the academic year, once the senior centers were officially closed in the Bronx, which is March 23rd, our seniors, we moved our classes remotely and then began the work of actually documenting their lives and their challenges, good and bad, during COVID-19.
And so when we talk about the seniors and the work that's going on, talk to me a little bit about the Photo League and your exhibition, because that's creating a lot of visibility.
Well, thank you so much. We actually had to move our exhibition virtually this year. We usually have obviously a face-to-face exhibition. We have it outside the Mitchell Senior Center. But this year we merged both our classes at Mitchell Senior Center and at Kips Bay Castle Hill Senior Center onto a virtual year-end exhibition at bronxseniorphotoleague.org. And the challenge that we faced there is, we had to do classes virtually. So everything that we learned, photo assignments, writing assignments, had to be done by the phone. We received things via telephone, text, emails for some. But the really main challenge that our students face is being able to continue in the class. I mean, dealing with older adults already, face an issue of isolation. But during COVID-19, we really saw that the classes really changed from not just art classes, but as lifelines for these adults dealing with isolation, hopelessness, and depression, obviously facing this really, scary and unknown situation of COVID-19.
How do you think that seniors actually perceive COVID-19? Obviously, for all of us, nobody's ever been in a pandemic before. But for them, obviously, I would believe a new perspective.
Absolutely. We did, besides our classes, weekly classes that we would send via text, WhatsApp, or email, we actually included weekly self-care tips. And to be able to really help during this time, like issues of time management, a gratitude journal, meditation, exercise, things that would help them stay in a very positive state of mind. But what I really learned during all of the 13 weeks that we were remote was how much they actually, even though they've never been through a pandemic, none of us have, but how much they really had to share. Out of all the groups that I dealt with, my older adults were the ones that are taking care of themselves the most, had the best point of view because they are survivors. And that is the horrible challenge of, getting older in America, which is ageism. Once you hit a certain age, even though you have accomplished so much in your life, you're seen as someone that has nothing to really offer anymore. And I felt during COVID-19, they had a lot to offer, a lot of advice, especially about resilience and hope and perseverance and taking care of yourself, high value that you do have that I think you gain through a life experience. So they had a lot to share. And I wish that our society, especially our, artist community, really listen to these older adults. They're definitely not doing hobby photography. They're doing incredible, important work, especially due to COVID-19, because their message was, you're going to die. COVID-19 is killing older adults. And my class, for the 2 weeks before we shut down, I had perfect attendance because our students wanted to come and not just get information about what was happening, but a purpose. And so that's what we came up with, the idea of them doing a personal project on their COVID-19 experience, which is featured on the year-end exhibition website.
How about therapeutic? I mean, this has got to be something that's therapeutic for them, having the opportunity to be able to do this. And I know that you said you lost some students along the way for isolation purposes, but for those that remained, how therapeutic was that?
it was incredibly therapeutic for my students and actually for myself as well. What we started with individual phone calls, because again, we couldn't find one technological platform to be able to share classes with our students. But then we moved to conference calls, and where we had the students actually be able to talk with each other, and that was transformative. Students wanted to reach out. We created a student family already in our classroom, which is very important as artists, to be able to see each other as creators and as resources as well. And it became incredibly helpful for students to talk with each other. The message I kept getting from my students was that they were so thankful to continue being part of the class because it gave them something to look forward to. It gave them something to do. And they felt not just creative, but they felt valuable, because the message that I kept telling them is, you are recording history. People don't have this point of view, meaning for older adults. So it was an incredible, incredible experience, but also they gave me hope. You know, they raised my spirits, and I was able to share their experience. And that's why I'm so glad to be able to have this incredible document, which is this website, to share with not just the South Bronx community and Bronxites, but the entire world, for people to really begin to see how we really need to challenge our own ageist views to be able to see our community. They are not dispensable. Part of the exhibition, we have a page called Further Learning in Action, where we deal with actually the challenges that specifically older adults are facing during COVID-19. We have articles on ageism during COVID-19, ageism in politics, the New York City public housing response, and also nursing home risks. And we really wanted to educate our audience about how this slice of society isn't dispensable, unlike some politicians who would want to make us believe. And then we also created 5 different points. Basically, how can we strengthen our relationship with our older adults today? And I think it's very important for our audience to also be able to know that what can you do today? You can do something today, like educating yourself on issues that older adults face, challenging your own ageist points of view, engaging and helping older adults in your life, volunteering to help older adults with daily needs, and more importantly, to vote for politicians who fight for the rights of older adults. So it started with being an art class, but in actuality, it's morphed into a movement, because older adults, but we're all hopefully getting older. We're all going to be older too. And so this is an issue that really has to do with all of us.
Well, Rhynna, thank you so much for great work with our most vulnerable population, our seniors. I know that many people are really trying to find ways to care for them, and you're doing an excellent job there. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and we got to leave it there, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Well, listen, if you want more information, all you got to do is go to BronxSeniorPhotoLeague.org, and there you can find the exhibition and then some. So thank you to Rhynna for sharing with us, and thank you for staying with us. Listen, we're taking a quick break. We've got more show coming up right after this.
It looks bleak. It feels bleak. But the city isn't shut down, because our public services keep working. In spite of, and in the face of, the dangers, we can count on them. And to keep them working and funded, now and in the future, we need to be counted. Self-respond now to the 2020 census at my2020census.gov.
And welcome back here to Open. Daren, Jaime here with you. Well, Raising John's Boy is a book that's empowering women and raising their sons solo, educating them not to raise their sons with animosity, but also engaging men to initiate a healthy and balanced dialogue with other men on the power of staying and holding one another accountable for positive manhood as well as some fatherhood standards. And here now to share with us is the author of the book, Raising John's Boy, Nijaah Howard. And thank you so much for being with us, Nijaah.
Thank you, Daren, so much for having me here today.
Great. And so we're talking about raising John's boy. It was a writing of yours, as we said, and it was deal to really helping out single mothers, and you kind of like trying to fill in some gaps there. So what was behind the writing of Raising John's Boy?
Ooh, well, you know, I have experienced a great deal of struggle and overwhelm when I was raising my own son. Not necessarily raising him in particular, but it was the life that was going on around me. His father was very, very, very mean and aggressive, and to a point that it took me out of my own character. I spent over 10 years in family court system. And so it really gave me an eye opening into just how the system works, how a lot of our men work. But I also understood how if I didn't check myself and really hone into self-love and self-encouragement and motivation, I could have lost myself in so many ways. And so I didn't want this same thing to happen to other moms out there, young mothers who are raising their sons. And so when after over 10 years of being dragged through the family court system, I woke up one morning and realized, oh my God, thank you so much, I made it. And I realized God just he helped me put the words and the paper and the pen together, and it just came out. And I said, if I could get through this, what I went through, I want to help other mothers get through it as well, and their sons.
Talk to me about the mindset, right? Because was there ever a mindset for you that said, because you are, you know, a mother that's raising a son, and we know that the presence of the father does make a significant difference in the life of children. So give us your thought process as you're going through this about being effective as a mom with the son. Did you ever doubt yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you're hearing statements, there was so much systemic oppression on us as being, here I am a woman, and then I'm a woman of color, and I'm raising a Black son. That trilogy right there was enough to say, you know, you're not enough, you know, you're not capable or enough to raise him to be a stand-up, powerful, productive, and peaceful man. It was understood years ago that, you know, if you are African American and raising a son without a father, he was doomed to be dead or in jail or on drugs as he got older, and you were going to be a welfare queen or uneducated. And so I fought those stereotypes. I fought those negative statements that says only a man can raise a man. I fought that. And I went back to school. I got my master's degree. He graduated high school. We did our thing. And I am so empowered by the fact that I am God's child. And I want other moms to know that you're God's child too. And if I can do it, so can you.
Yeah. And so talk to me about takeaways from the book. As people begin to read your book, what do you want people to be able to take away?
You know what? It's a self-help guide. It's a structure. It's, you know, we don't all have the answers. As a mom, I have to say I was fortunate. I was fortunate enough to have the village around me of support. And so I was also fortunate because I had this burning desire inside of me to fight the power, if you will. And so I want moms to take away tips and tools of how to use their tools, right? Because not every mom knows how to raise a son. They have them, but it doesn't mean they know how to raise them. And so are you raising him effectively? Are you raising him to be a good husband? Are you preparing him to be a good father? These are real tips and tools that Raising John's Boy is helping to you know, establish inside of you and really jostle some thoughts in your mind, because it's bigger than just you know, I have a son. It's bigger than that. You want to raise a man for the next generation to say, I am standing here today and I am loyal. I have integrity. I have a good character. I'm a stand-up man. And these are the kind of qualities we want to raise in our men. We don't want to coddle them. We want to prepare them to be men.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. Talk to me a little bit more about not just your book, but also you've got a magazine as well.
I do. I have a beautiful magazine called Thoughts and Action. This is such a unique magazine because it's double-sided and it has men on one side and there's women on the other side. The concept behind this magazine is that I really want to establish empathy, compassion, and love within the male and female population. I want men to start loving women again, Black women again, and I want women to start loving Black men again. So the whole concept here is this magazine focuses on one issue. And how does that one issue impact the man? And how does that one issue impact the woman? And the hope is that as they read this magazine, they're developing a sense of respect and self-love and understanding of both each other so that we can come together as one, as a family, and not divided as each other.
Yeah. I want you to share with me a little bit about finding your voice. I mean, obviously you're writing now and you've got a magazine, you've got a book. I know you've got some other things in the works, but talk to us about finding your voice. When was it for you that you actually could say, I got it, found my voice?
You know, I would have to say, my struggle during the court system is when I found my voice, because I seen how if you do not have the proper representation, you can get swallowed into the system, and the system will make you feel as though you are guilty, you are wrong, you're not enough, along with other parties. So I remember being in the court system, the courtroom, and I remember the very first time I stood up in defense of myself because I couldn't afford an attorney. They were too expensive. And my son's father, he was able to afford one. So I was constantly up against the wolves. But I remember the very first time I had to speak up and defend myself and defend my son and my actions as his mother and what I was capable of doing. And I remember when I stood up, the whole courtroom got silent because I spoke from a place that only a mama who is brown, who's loving her son, can come from. And the whole courtroom was like in awe. And I remember at that moment, it was just me and my Bible. And I remember at that moment, that's all I had was my Bible and my faith. And that's when I spoke up and I said, if I can do it now, this is my chance to help other moms with their voice as well.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Well, before we go, I want people to have the opportunity to connect with you. How do they go about connecting if they want the book, if they want to get the magazine? How do they go about doing that?
Well, let me just say really quick, thank you so much again for having me. If you want to reach out to me, my mission is to help our young African-American, Black and brown boys and men. And so I want to help single mothers today to strengthen that relationship with them, build up their self-esteem, their competency, and really get things going for themselves. Find that voice and find that pattern of freedom. So I help moms today, and I do that through my coaching. And so I'm asking moms, reach out to me. If you are a young African-American male between 18 and 65, I'm currently doing a huge research right now. And I'm asking young men between 18 and 65 years of age, reach out to me because I'm doing a study and I want to empower our moms through this study, because we need each other. So if you want to reach out to me, go to my website. I'm at www.nijaahhoward.com. That's NIJAAHOWARD.com. When we strengthen our boys and our men, Daren, we stabilize our girls and our women.
Yeah, amazing, amazing work. Nijaah, thank you so much for sharing with us. And it's been very impactful hearing you talk and share your story and ultimately find your voice. Thank you so much for being with us here on Open.
Thank you so very much for having me again. And I look forward to hopefully coming back again soon.
Yeah, we got to bring you back for sure, for sure. Now, again,
Excellent.
If you want more information, you can always visit her website at nijaahhoward.com. Listen, we've got more shows. Stay with us. Open will continue right after this.
Who's most at risk for coronavirus? People over 65, people with underlying medical conditions like heart disease, chronic lung disease, asthma, diabetes, people undergoing cancer treatment, and people with weakened immune systems. What should you do if you or a loved one is at higher risk? Avoid close contact with people, avoid crowds, stay home if you can, wash your hands frequently, learn more ways to protect yourself and others at coronavirus.gov.
And thank you for staying with us. Repair the World NYC is a Jewish not-for-profit based in New York City, and they're deeply committed to helping improve communities by connecting community members to volunteer opportunities that actually meet local needs. The organization has initiated an online volunteering response to the coronavirus. And here now to share a little bit more about the work that goes on is the executive director of Repair the World NYC, Rachel Figurasmith. And thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. And so for people who may not be so familiar, why don't you give us a little bit more in depth as to Repair the World NYC?
Great. Repair the World NYC is based in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and in Central Harlem. We work directly with local service partners, places like food pantries, soup kitchens, after-school programs, legal aid offices, etc., and with Jewish organizations to integrate volunteering and boost the volunteering efforts of our service partners by finding people who are able and interested to volunteer, particularly in this moment of COVID and of protests around our city and country. We are responding differently every day and finding that the energy around volunteering is greater than it's ever been before. We in March, we went from seeing around 50 volunteers a week to almost 500 a week. And those numbers have kept pretty steady over the last few months.
And when we talk about serving the community, obviously during the time post-COVID-19, the pandemic, talk to us about that volunteerism and serving the community, because you're finding more and more people are wanting to do it, even though our request is really somewhat to stay indoors.
Yeah, so it's a challenge because even though the invitation and request is to stay indoors, there's also this increasing need in our food pantry communities. One of our biggest partners is the Campaign Against Hunger in Crown Heights, and we also work closely with the Food Bank of New York City, particularly their Harlem location. And they are both seeing an increase in clientele of around 1,000%, which obviously means that they need more volunteers than ever. Repair the World NYC has invested massively in PPE purchases and personal protective equipment purchases. So we're able to make sure that all of our volunteers have disposable masks, or if they're in even riskier situations, we're equipping them with KN95 masks and using all sorts of sanitation processes so that people are staying safe and separated. And we have a lot of smaller shift opportunities so that people aren't going out for a long day and eating where they're volunteering. They're going out for 2 or 3 hours at a time to serve where they're needed most, and then go on their way, and more people can come in and volunteer. And we are excited and grateful to be able to serve the community in their greatest time of need right now.
Yeah. So talk to us about virtual volunteer opportunities, because, now we're hearing the word virtual volunteer. You need some. And what can virtual volunteers be able to do for you?
Yeah. So virtual volunteering involves things like writing letters. Particularly, we're finding that seniors and homebound folks are more isolated than ever. So we're doing a lot of work around communication with seniors and also with people with mental illnesses in the shelter system. Repair the World nationally and in New York City is launching in 2 days. We're launching a program called Serve the Moment, which is mobilizing hundreds of young adults to serve full time and to take part in what we're calling episodic volunteering, which are one-time volunteer opportunities in their communities. And a lot of that will involve virtual volunteering opportunities. So people would be doing things like writing letters and becoming pen pals with seniors. We're finding folks who have second language skills that they haven't been able to utilize in a long time. We're finding people who have suddenly in New York City, especially 2 extra hours of their day because they're not commuting, and they're able to fill that time by making phone calls to people who really need it, or make artwork, or do fundraising, or make calls to the mayor's office. we're finding ways to fill in those gaps in that way. We're also doing some work around census and getting people to fill out the census and enroll folks in SNAP benefits and connect people to babysitting opportunities while they're going back to work. So there's a lot that can be done from your home, and especially if you are a person that needs to be staying home right now, which so many of us are. I say with my 2 children directly under me. So many of us need to be staying home right now. There's still ways to be serving our communities. And I invite you to check us out and join us if you can.
And with the work that you're doing, what are you finding to be like the biggest need during a time such as this?
The biggest needs, I think, are really around food access. That seems to be where even some of our organizations that typically do criminal justice reform work are suddenly just doing food distribution because people need to eat more than anything else. And loneliness and meeting needs around loneliness and socialization. Those seem to be the 2 needs rising to the top the most.
And so if people want to get connected, what exactly do they do to stay connected to you? And if they wanted to be a volunteer?
Yeah, so you can check us out on Facebook. Is probably the easiest way to find us. We're at Repair the World Brooklyn or Repair the World Harlem. You can look at either of those pages. Or you can look at our website, which is werepair.org. We repair, all one word, .org/Brooklyn, or werepair.org/Harlem. Or you can, and you'll see on there my email address and a lot of my colleagues' email addresses, and you're welcome to get in touch. And we're happy to find ways to curate, which is just really finding individual opportunities for you that are the best fit.
And I know you have a great amount of partners that you're working with. Why don't you let us know a few of the partners that you're working with during this time?
Great. We're working with in Harlem, some of our main partners are Mandala Cafe. We're working with the Community Kitchen and Pantry. We work a whole lot with New York Cares across the city. We're working with the Campaign Against Hunger, the Brownsville Community Justice Center, Seeds in the Middle. We're working with the JCH of Bensonhurst, Jewish Community House of Bensonhurst, the Kingsway Y, St. John's Bread and Life. And actually, we've also transformed our own office space in Crown Heights into a distribution center. So for the first time in years, or the first time in our existence in Brooklyn, we're doing direct service ourselves, and we're happy to plug people in there. And we have a lot of flexibility in that space as well.
Yeah. And so when we talk about the needs, obviously a lot of needs are present during COVID-19, post-COVID-19. We're in the phase where we're reopening, right? And as we get to reopening, what are you finding are the biggest needs among some of your clients?
There's such a wide range. It seems to me that the need around food is not going to go away for a long time. Even as people get back to work, we're seeing a lot of families going back to work where 2 parents or 2 adults in the household were not working, and suddenly one is able to go back to work, which is great. But they're still going from what's been a 2-income household to a 1-income household, and that puts a huge strain around food access. I expect that, especially as we get closer to the start of the school year, whether school's open or not, we're going to see a really dramatic increase in education needs because so many kids have experienced a real gap in learning. And typically we would be meeting those needs by showing up in schools and doing reading support hands-on in the classroom or after school hours. This is certainly not policy yet, but I don't expect that to be how we're able to interact with children in the coming year. So a lot of that will be virtual, and we're figuring out what that's going to look like.
Yeah. Well, Rachel Figurasmith, thank you so much for sharing with us, and certainly the great work that you guys are doing in and around New York City. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for all you're doing. We're happy to be in partnership.
Hey, we're happy to partner with you as well. All righty, Rachel Figurasmith. Well, we want to let you know that we've come to the end of our show today. We want to thank all of our guests for joining us, and most of all, you, the viewer, for tuning in. Now, if you missed any part of the today's show, I should say, you can catch the Recablecast at 5 and 8 p.m. on Bronx Updates Channel 67, and always Verizon Files Channel 33, and anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. For all of us here on the set of Open, coming to you virtually, I am Daren Jaime saying take care, God bless, and most of all, keep this channel wide open. Take care.